In our house, we use a lot of onions. And some of the members of our family are great at cutting onions and others aren't. I've looked all over the internet to find the best tutorial, no matter if it's a small kid or an adult. There's lots of chefs cutting onions out there. They use a big knife like this. You go. Most people don't even have a knife like this. Saying nothing about having that speed, putting your fingers in so you don't get them cut off. So I'm going to not do this version, but do more of a home cook version using these two implements. This is a Victorinox, I'm probably saying the name wrong. It's got a nice round edge on it. When one of my kids was in kindergarten, they actually gave the kids knives like this in order to do cutting of vegetables and fruit. Kindergarten. It's got a serrated edge on it. This is about 20 years old. I think I paid maybe $4 for it, and it's worth every penny. And unlike this knife, which you have to keep sharp, and it's kind of dangerous in the hands of somebody who's not careful with this, this is relatively careful, even with the serrated edge. Now, I don't recommend anybody try this, but that just gives you a sense of what the value of this knife is. I'm going to show you how to slice and dice an onion. My way, the safe way. In preparation for this video, I actually looked up the price of this knife, and it's around $10 for one. You can get different color handles. I'll post a link down below. You can get like 4 of them for 28 bucks or $25 or $24, depending on where you get it. There's another brand that's not the Victorinox, and it seems to be rated just as high, and you can get 4 of those for around $9. One of the things that really bothers people about onions, and it doesn't really bother me, I'm not sure why, is the crying as you cut it. So there's a couple things you could do. I guess you could wear swim goggles or some sort of protective goggles. You could even have a shield down there. It's going to help the vapors from coming and hitting you. One thing that works for me on probably 99 out of 100 onions, even a really super strong onion, is I keep my mouth closed while I'm cutting. Now, I'm going to be talking in the video, and I'll tell you whether or not I'm crying. But I also try to breathe through my nose as much as possible, keep my mouth closed, and that will help keep away the tears. So let's go to a top-down shot, and I'll show you how to quickly and efficiently and safely slice an onion thin and dice it. And then I'll show you how to store it. Cutting an onion doesn't have to be hard, and I'll give you a bunch of tips that save you lots of time. Clean up, all that kind of stuff. So first thing you'll see here is a paper plate. You can cut an onion on a wooden surface, you can cut an onion on a plastic surface, but no matter what kind of surface you use, you got to worry about the onion juice leaking into the board or leaking into the plastic. And I don't like cleaning these things after cutting up an onion, so I won't use this. But I will use a paper plate. You can see I might even bend the knife a little bit and cut the top off. Then I turn it over, and this is the root end. I'll take and slice the onion in half. Very rarely do you ever need to have a whole onion when you're slicing it. And then I just take off the minimal amount of layers of the onion. Put that to the side. Do the same thing here. It's important to leave the root end on. That keeps the whole layers of the onion together and makes it so much easier to chop or cut. Slice, dice. I was going to say make julienne fries, but it's not potatoes. And if you have a problem with that, then you just take the blade and the knife and you can usually flip it up like that and pull it off. Alright, so there, I'm just going to throw this in the trash. Tonight we're having pizza, and I always love to put onion on top, and so I'm going to have it nice and thin. Now, you can turn your fingers in like this, and a lot of people do. I like to hold the onion, and this is where the power of this serrated edge works. And just thinly slice it down. And you got to watch your fingers, so you have to be careful. And you can get little devices that kind of hold the onion in place, but they're not any cheaper or better than this. A fork, and you can notice it's a dessert fork because we don't use dessert forks as much as we do regular forks. Stab it in the end where the root is, and that gives me a nice little protective guard for my hand. And I'll just slice the onion up like this. And then I'll have that much of the root left over, and I'll just kind of put that to the side, and eventually it's going to go in the trash like that. So that's 1/2 of an onion. Now we usually slice up a whole onion per pizza, so you can start it off like this and cut the onion as thin as you want. As you get more and more practice, you'll be able to go faster and faster. But see how this protects my hand, and yet I can get right down to the edge of the onion, right there. Besides slicing, I'll show you how to chop and dice. And the only difference is how small the pieces are. So you can see maybe that would be considered a dice, a very fine dice. There's different levels of dice. A chop is like this. You're gonna make probably anywhere from 1/4 to 1/2 inch. And you're just gonna slice in towards the root like that. And this is why it's so good to have the root end there, because it just holds all these pieces together. And I'm just cutting down into the center of the onion from the outside. You might have to hold it a little bit when you start. Slice it down. Watch your fingers. The same thing with the root once you get towards the end. And there you might have to turn it in a little bit, do that. So that's a chop. So a dice is just like a chop, except for you're going to go in maybe 1/8 of an inch, depending on how fine you want the dice. So I just hold it down like this. I'm going to come in just like I did with the chop and run the dice slices towards the center of the root and the other side. Put that in place. I don't know why I've never seen anybody use a fork before on the end, but it is magic. I'm just going to hold it in place, start slicing up. I've been talking this whole time and no tears. Although I can feel that I'm on the verge of tears. And again, if I'm doing this regular, I'm not talking. So here's the dice. Okay, so you got much smaller cut than you do the chopped. No special equipment except for a paper plate, this knife, and a fork. And you're off to the races, slicing up onions every which way you can. So now I've bagged up the diced, the sliced, and I'm doing the chop now. And what I like to do is just kind of get into the bag like this. I'll turn it over and I'll seal it up nice and tight so there's not much air gap at all. And when you take the air out, it helps preserve the onions. This is a sandwich bag. These are little snack bags. And I'll put them in here like this. And I think I can get it all three in there. And then, again, push it down, make sure they all clear out, and seal it up. And onions in a refrigerator, at least a week. Sometimes you can stretch them a little longer than that, depending on how hard the onions were, kind of like an apple. But that's not going to smell. That's just to show you the slices. You can actually move it around a little bit so you're not cutting all in the same direction. Let's flip it over. And you got one little thing. It's not completely sliced through. So you want to rotate around the plate as you cut multiple onions. But nothing came through. Thumbs up and comments. Always appreciate it. Thanks for watching. If you're interested in all sorts of culinary solutions, making and breaking things, designs of all kinds, for the home, sports, and photography equipment. I even do costumes, cosplay, and props. Check out my channel and please subscribe, because you never know what quick and safe solutions you're gonna see.